Si te quieres divertir con encanto y con primor, solo tienes que vivir un verano en Nueva York.
Nueva York.
Si te quieres divertir con encanto y con primor,
¿Pero qué es esto?
solo tienes que vivir
Y este frío.
un verano en Nueva York.
Un ratito nada más. Ey, ey, ey. 4 de julio, baile Yulai. Ando con mi prima borracha Rulay. Los míos en el Bronx, saben la que hay. Con la nota en hoy, por Washington hoy. Willy Colón me dicen el malo. Ey, porque pasan los años y sigo dando palos. Tendiendo discos como cuadro Frida Kahlo. El perico en blanco, sí, sí, el tusi rosita. No te confundas, no, no, mejor evita. Ey, un shot de cañita en casa de Toñita. Y PR se siente cerquita, sí, sí, sí. En el campeonato nadie me lo quita.
Cerveza nuevo, number one de Cerveza nuevo, ¿ok? Puerto Rico.
Como Bad Bunny va a ser rey del pop, ey, con reggaeton y dembow, ey, con reggaeton y dembow, sí, con reggaeton y dembow. Como Bad Bunny va a ser rey del pop, ey, con reggaeton y dembow. Me siento como el lápiz en Capel del Dow. Cuando yo nací fue que nació el flow de lado a lado. Ping pong, flow pesado, Big Pong, con silenciador le robamos las gatas. J-Bone, ey, yo estoy en la mía, no tengo adversario, no. Con los Yankees los me aguanzato. A correr que otra vez la sacamos al estadio.
Si te quieres divertir con encanto y con primor, solo tienes que vivir
Ya mismo nos vamos.
un verano en Nueva York.
Cuidado que nadie nos escuche. Cuidado que nadie nos escuche. Cuidado que nadie nos escuche. Cuidado. Tú tienes piquete, mami, yo también. Tú estás buena, yo estoy bueno también. Huelo rico y ando con los de 100. Si tú lo quieres, lo tienes que mover. Tú tienes piquete, mami, yo también. Tú estás buena, yo estoy bueno también. Huelo rico y ando con los de 100. Si tú lo quieres, lo tienes que mover. Lo tienes que mover, lo tienes que mover, lo tienes que mover, lo tienes que
What's going on, team? Hopefully everybody's doing wonderfully well. This message finds you flushed with leads and opportunities in the marketplace. We're waiting for the talented Mr. Jose Luis Morales to join us. And when he does, we'll get to it. How's everybody doing? I want to give some shout outs. What's up, Lauren? How are you? Glad the content is impactful. It's helpful to you. That's why we create it. And, you know, where the magic happens, I want everybody to be clear, is where you have an ecosystem where you can take what you're learning and apply it. You know what I'm saying? So having a community of like-minded individuals where you can plug in and then apply what it is that you're learning. Because the purpose of learning is doing. Oh, guess who decides to join us today? Jeez, Louise, bro. So the purpose of learning is doing. So make sure that you're doing, because if you're learning and you're not doing, you haven't learned anything. So what's up, bro? You doing good? You doing all right?
Mr. Aaron Novello is on time for the first time.
Oh, wow.
I'm just
Doing okay,
teasing
bro?
you.
Is everything good?
Yeah, everything is good.
Yeah, good. So we've been having this conversation that is really emerging because of things that we're seeing in the marketplace around pricing property, and specifically around price adjustments and the nuances of that conversation. And, you know, me and you were talking, I think it was yesterday or the day before. And, you know, what I find very interesting is that every segment of these, you know, there's multiple different conversations that you need to learn to master. They're all presentations. And I think the tendency for most agents is to focus almost entirely on the presentation of setting appointments, which is important. It's fine. At the same time, they completely are unaware that there's other presentations that they have to master. So one being pre-qual, another one being the actual listing presentation, the pricing portion, listing presentation, handling objections, closing, getting price adjustments, presenting offers. And it's imperative that if your intention is to be a dominant listing agent, you have to master all of those presentations. And people are like, all of them? But Edwin, I don't want to do that. It's like, bro, like, yeah, that's what it takes. You got to master all of those presentations. And this one's really important for the marketplace that we're in right now, because me and you are both seeing that, you know, while inventory is not exploding, it's definitely creeping up and sitting on the market longer, and therefore the presentation on, you know, price adjustments, that skill is becoming increasingly more valuable and necessary.
Agreed. I actually muted myself while I was drinking water.
Bro, so I didn't have to listen to you gulp like I did last week. You know what I'm saying?
No.
And then you were like, you can hear that? I'm like, yeah, bro, you have like a mic right in front of you. Of course I can hear it.
No, yeah, and I agree with that. Right now, what I'm hearing from the marketplace, I'm hearing from colleagues is, hey, look, why isn't my listing selling? And it's interesting because I know that for a lot of agents, it causes tension, it causes stress, and even for clients. And then they start to imagine like, oh my God, maybe I should do this or maybe I should do that. When the reality is that once you make an adjustment, it actually positions the property in a way where it causes it to sell. We had a property that we had listed at 1.4, maybe 1 or 2 showings. We reduced it to 1.3. All of a sudden, it became the most popular listing in the marketplace, and then we got a full price offer. So, and the old me would have been like, oh my God, $100,000 reduction. Like maybe we can reduce it 20, maybe we can reduce it 10, maybe we can reduce it 50. No, that's what needed to happen. Not only that, but it's all relative, you know, like a $10,000 reduction on a $100,000 mobile home is equivalent to a $100,000 reduction on a 1.4 single family residence. So I have a couple questions. So what we've been doing over the past weeks, and if you haven't checked those videos out, I'd recommend it. We're doing a series on price reductions to be able to provide value. And Aaron is actually a very skilled technician at this. Like a listing presentation, I'll kill him, you know, like price reductions. I think he has me on that one, you know? So I wanted to go over a couple things. One is, how would you handle this? So like, let's say that the property sold at $1,129,000 next door, maybe like 6 months ago, next door, exact same model, similar condition. You price it at the same exact price as that one, and the marketplace is no longer responding to that price.
Yeah. So, and this will happen quite frequently and quite commonly, particularly when the marketplace is beginning to transition, which we would agree, me and you, based on inventory and based on what we're seeing, while it's not this dramatic increase, there's definitely been an increase in inventory. So I think we're starting to see that transition. So some key kind of phrasing. So let's say somebody says to you like, yeah, but like the neighbors sold next door. And again, I want to make sure everybody's clear on the framework. We always acknowledge, I heard you. Yeah, I understand, Jose. And I know that can be a little bit confusing, kind of leave you scratching your head being like, hey, the neighbor sold for that amount. Like, why can't we get that amount?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I need you to know and understand, Jose, that like, you know, we're on the same team. My goal and objective is to help you to maximize value and get you every penny possible. So what I'd like to do is to go over with you what we're seeing happening in the marketplace at this moment, and then what's happening with some of our competitors in terms of what they've been experiencing, showings, offers, or lack thereof, what's gone under contract in the last 30 days to get the clearest picture as to where the market's at right now. Then we can go over some options, and whatever you decide, I'll support you. Fair enough. So that framework, I just want to make sure everybody that's, you know, kind of watching this, that they understand that there is a framework, right? We're going to acknowledge, and then we're going to provide them with, you know, some different options, and then they can make a decision. And in this particular instance, some key kind of phraseology is like, you know, my experience is, Jose, is that price is a snapshot in time. Price is a snapshot in time. So what that means is that, and I don't need to tell you, Jose, I know you know this, markets are not static. It's not like they stay the same all the time. They're constantly fluctuating. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Yeah. And the best way, the only way that we have to be able to determine what's happening in the marketplace is data. So what I'd like to do now is just to revisit with you and share with you what we're seeing in the marketplace right now at this snapshot. Because the thing to consider is that property selling and closing, 3 months ago, which it did. And I'm very clear that it did. What that means, Jose, is they went under contract 45 to 60 days before that. Does that make sense?
It does.
So what that means is that what they agreed to is a snapshot in time of the market actually 5 months ago. Okay. And as such, we have to look at some data together as a team and say, hey, has anything changed? Because I agree with you, the marketplace is constantly changing. And then from there, we can make decisions, right? Because I'm here to help you. I'm never here to talk you into doing anything. Again, I'm demonstrating I'm not attached to the outcome, right? And I'm aligned with them, right? So what we're seeing in the marketplace, is right now, there are currently X amount of properties that are for sale within 5 miles of your home that fit within the price point I would perceive to be direct competition, from $1 million to $1.2 million. And of those properties in the last 30 days, Jose, do you know how many actually went under contract?
I don't.
Well, it's only been 2. Now that's interesting because what that shows me is that, 2 out of 10, let's say, selling means only 20% of the inventory is selling. So that means 2 sellers got an offer, it was acceptable to them. The other 8 are scratching their head being like, hey, what happened? Now I'm curious, does that seem like an environment where things are flying off the shelf and prices are kind of going up in value? Or does it seem like one in where there's not a lot of buyers in the marketplace and the properties that are selling are ones that are, compelling in some way, shape, or form? And there's a lot of competition for those buyers.
No, it seems like there's a lot of competition.
Yeah, I agree. And then, in delving into this, right, in preparation for our conversation, the 2 that went under contract, Jose, do you know what they were asking?
No.
They were asking 1.1 or below. Now, the reason I find that interesting is for the following reasons. One is that one that we're looking at that sold, 90 days ago, which is really a reflection of 5 months ago, sold for 1.15. And let's look at this. So I have this in front of me and I sent it over to you in preparation for connecting. We can see kitchen, bathrooms, and flooring. I mean, they're pretty similar to yours. Would you agree?
I would, yeah.
Yeah. Now those 2 that went under contract at 1.1, let's take a look at those. Does the kitchen and the bathrooms look pretty similar to yours?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have the modifications and the changes. So, man, what that means is that property went under contract 1.15. For all intents and purposes, that same property, where are we seeing that buyers are seeing enough value to make offers? What was the asking prices?
Well, those are listed at 1.1 now. But
Yeah.
I mean, those aren't, they were probably desperate to sell,
Which I can certainly see where you're coming from. And what I'm aware of, Jose, and my intention, by the way, in sharing this with you is not to be combative in any way. It's just to give you, kind of direct feedback that's in alignment with your goals and objectives, which is to sell the property. In fact, let me ask you a question. Like, do you think the marketplace cares why somebody sells for a particular price? Or do you think it's only interested in what it's sold for?
Well, I know that there's always going to be people that are desperate to sell and they'll sell at ridiculous prices, but I'm not desperate, Aaron.
But I hear you. And again, you are the boss here. My job's to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. And the analogy I like to use, Jose, is like, let's say we were buying like a stock or something. And does the market care why somebody traded at a particular price, or is it only singularly focused on what the last trade was?
Probably only focus on what the last trade was.
That's exactly right. And with that being said, just by you saying that demonstrates that you're beginning to recognize that independent of the reasons behind the sale, an appraiser is going to go into the marketplace and say, hey, what was the last closed transaction? Not only that, buyers, because of these platforms, let's say you and Mariela were shopping for a home and you went on one of these aggregators of data that shows you, recent sales and stuff. And you saw that the last 2 that went under contract were asking 1.1 would you guys be like overly concerned why they went under contract for 1.1, or would you be like, hey, that's where buyers are seeing value right now?
I'd probably, but obviously I'm not a buyer right now. I'm a seller,
Yeah,
you
I get
know, and my goal is to sell for the most amount of money.
100%. And I want to be clear, Jose, we're on the same page. Obviously, the more we help you sell it for, the more we get compensated to help you. At the same time, my intention in pointing that out to you is just to demonstrate that the marketplace seems to be showing us something, right? And we have a couple different data points, right? One is we have our own data point, which is we've been on the market now for 30 days. We've had 21 showings and no offers. That's data point number one. Data point number two is we see that of our competition, 2 have gone under contract and they were asking 1.1 or below. So if we look at that information together as a team, it seems to be pointing us in a particular direction. Now, I'm aware that that direction may not be palatable or exciting. So, at the same time, we can never lose track of the hard facts of the situation. So what I'd like to do is just revisit your motivation and your reasons behind this move. And my intention in doing it is just so I'm really clear on your goals and objectives, because you're the main event here. I know you shared with me that the main reason you and Mariela were considering selling was, you wanted to move to Texas. Is that still the case, or has that changed?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Is it an option for you to not sell the home and still move?
It is, but we don't want to do that.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, I don't want a long distance rental.
Okay. And is there any particular reason why you don't want a long distance rental?
I'm never planning on coming back to California.
I understand. So you just don't want any loose ends. You don't want to babysit tenants long distance. Is it an option for you guys to keep it as a secondary home?
No.
Okay. So then it sounds like in order for you guys to get what you want at the time you want, it requires that we get the property sold. Now, let me ask you this. What would happen on the outside chance? Because I know you also shared with me, you really wanted, if you had your preference, to get this done in the next, 120 days. We've already been on the market for 30 days. What would happen on the outside chance if we were still here past 120 days and the home wasn't sold? What would that mean for you and your family?
It just a lot to carrying costs.
Okay. And then I'm sure you have, and I'm sure you think about it regularly. My intention in asking is not to be nosy, just so I'm clear. Approximately how much per month in carrying costs would that be?
It's about $3,000 a month.
Wow. So, man, let me think about that then. If we were still here 90 days from now at 3,000, man, it could be $10,000 just to sit here.
100%.
Holy smokes. So I'm very clear that the preference would be is not to have that happen for longer than it needs to. So then with all of that being said, Jose, what I'd like to review with you is the few reasons why a home doesn't sell. Then we can go over the options that you have, and whatever you decide, I'll support you. Okay.
Okay.
So the 3 reasons why a home's not selling, particularly when we're getting this number of showings, no offers. The first one is maybe I'm not doing my job. Maybe I'm just asleep at the wheel, man. I'm not like marketing the property. I'm not networking. I'm not giving it my undivided attention. I know you don't follow me around every day, Jose. At the same time, I can share with you that we're doing the exact same things that we've done to help X amount of families sell their property in the last 12 months or X amount of $1 million worth of real estate. And I'm also aware it doesn't mean much because yours wasn't one of them. At the same time, over the last 30 days, we've helped 5 other families put their homes under contract. So I know that what we're doing is working, and that's not it. The second issue is the condition of the property. Now, you tell me, do you feel like the home is not in good condition?
No, I don't feel that. It's in good condition.
I agree with you. I think it's in as good a condition as it's going to be. And we also discussed if it made any sense to put any capital into the property to increase features and amenities. I don't believe that that's the case because I don't think you would get any money back, right?
Correct.
So then that leaves us with a third option as to why a home's not selling, and that's the price. Now, I am very well aware, Jose, that an adjustment in the price affects you more than it affects me, right? At the same time, what my general concern is for you and your family is that if we keep sitting here and we extend it out, it just ends up costing you money as we sit here. What we're also seeing happening is with the showings and no offers, and then the 2 that have gone under contract in our price point. Do you know what really concerns me about that, Jose?
What?
Is that those buyers saw enough value to look, they just didn't see enough value to buy, and instead they made an offer somewhere else. And we don't want to have that to continue to keep happening. So we have a couple choices, right? And whatever you decide is okay. The first option is we don't do a thing. We leave the price the same. We cross our fingers. We hope and wish and pray to the real estate gods that we get an offer. Now, more likely than not, Jose, this isn't me being negative, just an accurate assessment of reality. You'll probably get the same result, right? Very few showings, if any at all. We'll have to revisit this conversation, and it'll cost you another $3,000 in carrying cost. The second option is we do something drastic. And I just want to make sure that you're aware of it. I'm pretty sure you are, but I just want to make sure that it's on the table because it is an option for you. Is maybe you decide to do something different with the property, like you hold on to it, rent it out. But I know you shared with me that's not really a serious consideration. The third option is that we make an adjustment in terms of the price. And the marketplace seems to be showing us where buyers are seeing values close to that 1.1 number. So we'll dramatically increase the probability we can get you an offer that's acceptable in the time frame that you want. So either one of those are okay. Based on what you're looking to accomplish and why and the time frame you'd like to make all this happen in, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, let's make an adjustment. All right, so let's transition. So let's go over, like, what if it's a unique home? Meaning, like, I know in that example you pointed out, like,
Yep.
Like there's this other two properties in California specifically, bro. Like every home is like, not every home, unless if it's not in a tract neighborhood, then the homes vary substantially, basically. And I'm imagining that there's other agents in other parts of the country where there's rural areas and the market's not responding that way. So let's imagine that it's a unique home and there's not like, hey, look, those two comps. And then what I want to imagine, because we have this right now, like where we have other, I'm listing a property today that, dude, there's like 20 active listings, but there's like 25 escrows. So
really?
the ratio's like not like 10 and 20%. It's not
I'm
like,
curious though, in that scenario, is that closer to the equator? So meaning like, is it close to what's affordable?
no.
Like
So
750 or what is it?
It's interesting. I did one of the reports that I'll pull sometimes is, let's say their price is $1,150,000. I'll say, show me everything from 900,000 to like $1,300,000. And what I noticed, over $1,300,000, there's only two properties that are in escrow. Everything else seems to be like lower than that price. But then there's properties like selling at $1 million that are older construction, no pools whatsoever. And in our area, like a pool does add value. It does add value, basically.
Yeah.
So, but I guess the question becomes like, let's say that you don't have that, or the marketplace isn't that, like you can't refer back to like two other properties. How would you say that in a way where it's just like, hey, look, like the marketplace is just not like, like whenever you get showings and no offers. Yeah.
Yep. So I would say is like, hey, ultimately, offers from the marketplace, Jose, is where the market sees value. And if you recall, when we had our initial conversation, when I had the good fortune of earning your business, we discussed how price is a strategy in an attempt to get the most. Do you remember that conversation?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. And you remember we discussed that we had two strategies at our disposal. One strategy is to position a little bit higher. Logic is I can always come down. I can't go back up, and I want to leave room to negotiate. And, I shared with you, it's not bad. There are a few drawbacks, right? One is it usually takes longer. The second is that kind of days on market novelty, right? So as time progresses, people start thinking something's wrong and we see offers come in less and less. The second option we had at our disposal is to position it very competitively. By that, what I mean is like very close to what seems to be reasonable based on market dynamics. And the purpose in doing that, kind of deploying that strategy, is we can get a lot of people interested very quickly, force people to compete. What ends up coming to the surface is the most that somebody's willing to pay, right? And we get the best terms and conditions. And, I said to you, hey, whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. Which option do you think would serve you best? We decided to go with the option of positioning it a little bit higher, which is fine. And if you recall, we also discussed that we would know very quickly if the marketplace saw value in terms of our price and product. Do you remember that conversation?
I do.
Okay. And do you recall how we would be able to tell if buyers saw value in price and product?
I don't.
We'll get lots of showings. And most importantly, we'll get offers, right? Because offers from the marketplace is where the marketplace sees value. If for some reason they don't see enough value, then what happens is we get showings and no offers, or we get very few showings, if any at all. Now, you know what the great news is, Jose? We're not in that last category. We're not getting very few showings, if any at all, right? We are getting showings and no offers. And when that happens, Jose, there's usually only 3 reasons. So I'd like to review those with you so you can be clear, and then I'll go over your options and whatever you decide is okay. The first reason is maybe I'm not doing my job.
So I think that framework.
You see where I'm going though?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Well,
let me.
And the reason why, by the way, it's so important. I just want everybody who's kind of going to be listening to this. The reason why I'm saying, the first reason is maybe I'm not doing my job is because they're thinking it.
Yeah.
I just want to address it. I want to put it on the table, and then you go about. So that if you don't have data to support, then it's just a logical it's a logical argument. You know what I'm saying?
Now, let's say that they didn't have the conversations.
Then it becomes more problematic because now you have to. And this is why, by the way, I began today's session in the dojo with these are all presentations to be mastered, and they all stack on top of each other.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have that conversation and you didn't frame the price conversation up front, you have to do it after the fact. And that is, it still can be accomplished, but now you're like kind of trekking uphill. You know what I'm saying? So now you have to go back and set the frame and be like, yeah, I certainly see where you're coming from. And I know that it can be frustrating, Jose. I really do. And I want you to know that I'm on your team. I want you to get every penny possible. And I don't take these conversations lightly. Like as uncomfortable it is for you to hear, it's equally as uncomfortable for me to share it with you. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, as long as you continue to share with me that your goal and objective is to sell, I'm 100% committed to giving you open, honest, authentic information so you can make decisions that you feel are best. So it's not uncommon if the marketplace isn't responding to think like, hey, maybe it's a lack of marketing, maybe it's a lack of, effort on behalf of me, your agent, and that's a possibility. I know you don't follow me around every day. At the same time, what I can share with you is that we're doing the exact same things that we've done to sell X amount of properties in the last 12 months, X amount of $1 million worth of real estate, and I know it doesn't mean much because yours hasn't been one of them. At the same time, in the last 30 days, we've helped 5 families put their homes under contract, so we know that works. What's also, I think, important is the amount of showings that we've had, right? Which is a clear indication that what we're doing is working. We've had X amount of showings, and the amount of hits that we've had online, which I know you're getting those updates regularly. It's been like 550 that we've seen online. So we have 550 kind of views, which are invitations to come take a look. We've then had 8 showings. And of those showings, because we're giving you that feedback on a regular basis, and I know it's been shared with you, the thing that we've heard consistently with direct feedback was that at this price point, they were expecting a little bit more features and amenities. So that leads us to the second reason why a home's not selling, and that could be the condition. You tell me, do you feel like it's not in good condition? They're always going to be like, nope, I think it's great. I agree. And then that leads us with the third reason, and that's the price.
So basically redirecting them back to there's only a few reasons why the property's not selling, basically.
That's right.
Now, let's say that during the pricing strategy, you went over the 2 pricing strategies. Let's say 900 is to leave a little bit of room to negotiate. 850 is basically like what you guys agreed to that would be an aggressive price. Now, let's say that you listed at 850 and the marketplace does not respond at 850.
Yeah. So when we initially sat down together, and so let's say you say it to me, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I know that can be confusing and a little frustrating, truthfully. And I want you to know I'm equally as frustrated, right? I take the responsibility you provided me with very seriously. It's to protect the value of your property, get you top dollar. And when we initially sat down and looked at the information, we discussed that nobody has a crystal ball, including me, and that price is a snapshot in time, right? And when we reviewed the information together as a team, the marketplace seemed to be showing us that 850 was reasonable, right? And then, we had a conversation where I shared with you, Jose, like, hey, ultimately the market is the one that dictates value. I'd love it for it to be me or you, where I could wave a magic wand and get you $1 million while we're at it. At the same time, the marketplace is the one that's going to dictate that. And we discussed how we would know if they saw value. Do you remember that conversation?
No.
Okay. Well, essentially, just as a gentle reminder, we discussed that the marketplace would see value. And the way we knew they saw value is if we had a lot of showings and most importantly, offers. Because offers ultimately is the best feedback we can get from the market that they see value, right? Not just enough to look, but enough to buy or make an offer. And we discussed that we would know very quickly if we fit into that category, right? Which was either A, we would get lots of showings and offers, or B, we would get showings and no offers, right? And the good news is we're not in the category of getting like very few showings. That's not what's happening. Instead, what's happening is we're getting showings and no offers. So when that takes place, there's usually only 3 reasons why, and I'd like to review them with you so that way you can make the decision. You bring me right back to it.
Right back to okay. So let's say that you've only been on the market for like 14 days, and let's say you've only had 3 showings or 2 showings or 1 showing, and they're like, "Hey, Aaron, what can we do to drive more traffic to the property?"
Yeah. And this is where time out before I answer it. This is where process is so important, right? So did I have the conversation up front about, did I frame the conversation about price? Like, hey, we seem to be in agreement that the marketplace is showing us somewhere around X, seems to be reasonable. Here it comes down to, now it comes down to strategy, because price is a strategy and attempt to get the most. I like to go over the options that you have. So that way you can make the decision that you feel is best. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. And first, what I'd like to do is to go over how precisely it is a strategy and attempt to get the most. Would that be okay? And then you go into that, right? So framing that, then give them the options, and then telling them at the listing appointment, we're going to know right away, Jose, if the marketplace sees value. Do you know how we'll know that? How's that? Well, if they do, we're going to get lots of showings and offers, which is great. And if for some reason they don't see enough value, they're going to tell us that as well. Do you know how they'll tell us that? They're like, how? Well, we'll get showings and no offers, or we'll get very few showings, if any at all. Now, I do not believe, Jose, we would be in that second category, that last category, because, you know, based on the data, the marketplace seems to be showing us this is reasonable. At the same time, I'll be giving you updates every 7 to 10 days, letting you know what's going on. And if we see that the marketplace isn't responding, you know, the way we want them to, then we can always make an appropriate adjustment. And I would do you see what I just did? We can always make an appropriate adjustment. I didn't tell you, but the way, that's how you teach adults, instruct adults.
Well,
when I said that to Jose, he knows what I mean.
Well, when you say appropriate adjustment, does that mean that you're saying that we have to reduce the price?
Yeah. So ultimately, again, offers from the market is where the marketplace sees value. And if we're not receiving offers, there's usually 3 reasons why, right? The first is perhaps maybe I'm not doing my job. And, you know, at the same time, I know you're hiring me based on our track record and our ability to perform. And I promise you we'll be doing the exact same things that we've done to sell X amount of property. So I know that's not going to be it. The second issue is the condition of the property. Now, we've had a conversation about the condition, and we're in agreement that it doesn't make sense to put any capital in, because my suggestion is I treat your money like it's my money. So if we spend $1, the only reason we would do that is to get 2 or 3 back. And we seem to be in agreement that that's not a realistic expectation here, and it's as good a condition as we can get it, correct?
Got it.
Yep. And then that leads to the third reason, and that's the price. So, you know, again, I don't take that very lightly, because I know you are hiring me to protect the value of your property, and that's my goal and objective. We're also on the same team, Jose, because the more we help you sell it for, the more we get compensated to help you. You know, at the same time, I'll be keeping you abreast of the situation constantly and perpetually, so you can have all the information you need so you can make the decision that you feel is best in terms of how to proceed. Make sense?
Yep. So let me ask.
So you have to be doing that, and you also have to be 7 to 10 days actually doing what you said you're going to do. You have to do that honeymoon period, which is like as soon as it hits the market, you're calling them and you're reminding them. So, hey, Jose, exciting news. We're up and active on the market as of today. Pictures have been taken. I know we sent them over to you and we got the thumbs up from you. I think they came out great, particularly those drone shots. They look awesome. They got the backyard and the pool, and, you know, everything's in place. We are active up and on the market. We're deploying our marketing campaign, beginning to network with the top agents in town. And as we discussed, we're going to know right away as a team if the buyers see value in our price and product. If they do, we're going to have lots of showings and offers. For some reason they don't, we'll have showings, no offers, or very few showings, if any at all. I really don't believe we're going to be in that last category. At the same time, I'll be giving you updates as promised every 7 to 10 days, letting you know what's going on. And if we need to make any adjustments, what they are. I'm actually using the word adjustment. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to like set this up. I think a lot of the reason why I'm taking so much time here, Jose, I think a lot of the reason why agents have a hard time with this is because they haven't set it up at all.
Yeah.
And then they're coming to the conversation being like, hey, you know, we need to adjust the price. It's like, dude, like if you set this up right, they know it's coming.
Yeah. Okay. And then did I ask you what can we do to draw more buyers into the
Yeah.
home? And
Yeah. And,
like,
what I really hear you asking me, Jose, is, you just want to make sure we're doing everything possible, leaving no stone unturned to get traffic into the property. Is that right?
yeah, obviously, like, and to be honest, I mean, we've been on the market for 2 weeks and we've only had 2 showings on the property.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you're bringing that up because truthfully, Jose, I'm a little bit concerned about that as well. So, really, two things, right? First is to address, like, making sure we're doing everything possible. I know you don't follow me around every day, Jose. At the same time, I need you to know I'm doing the exact same things, and the team's doing the exact same things that we've done to help X amount of families so far this year, help X amount of families in the last 12 months, X amount of $1 million worth of real estate in the last 12 months. And I know this doesn't mean much because yours wasn't one of them. At the same time, we're deploying the same strategy that has helped so far already. On May 9th, 5 people or 4 families get their homes under contract. So, we're doing the exact same things, and that's not it. And usually when a home's not selling, there's usually only 3 reasons why. So I'd
And
like
go
to
back to that for a
and
moment.
go right back to it, bro.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but do you see that initial, like, I acknowledge, and then I set up the frame, I align myself with you. Yep, we're on the same team, and then we bring them right back to it.
Well, even things like I treat your money like it's my money. Like there's like these little phrases because I remember when I was learning how to sell, bro. Like what I would do is I would take any role plays that we would have, I'd record them, and then I would write out little clauses like that because things like that didn't come natural to me. Meaning, like I didn't come out of the womb or like selling real estate. Like I treat your money like my money. So it was like those little things that it's like, oh, like saying certain things and it gets people to feel more comfortable, and then it allows you guys to be able to work together instead of like tensing up or getting reactive to whatever they're saying. Okay, so what about, like, let's say that and it's kind of like the same thing as my neighbor sold for this, the Zillow thing, which I'm
Yeah,
imagining that agents get that all the time. So let's
yeah.
say they're like, hey, look, like, why would I sell it for 900,000 when Zillow says my house is worth 945?
I get it.
Why would I do that?
I understand, Jose. And truthfully, as a consumer, I'm very well aware that that's very confusing to you. And I need you to know and understand that I'm on your team. My goal and objective is to help you get every penny possible. I'm your biggest cheerleader, man, because the more we sell the property for, the more we get compensated, right? I'm also aware that, an adjustment in the price is more impactful to you than it is to me, So I don't take that very lightly. And what I find very interesting about Zillow and their kind of estimates of value is buried deep in their website. They give you the definition of their estimate and some disclaimers. Were you aware of that?
No.
Yeah. So in our geographic area, it goes on geographic area, but they give themselves kind of like a plus or minus range. And in our area, it's actually plus or minus 7%. So in other words, if it's saying that it's worth, let's say, just to use round numbers, like $1 million, based on their definition, which is their definition on their own site to kind of cover, CYA, right, sort of thing, to cover themselves, they're saying, hey, we could be saying that it's worth $1,070,000, or we could be saying that it's worth $930,000. And that's an enormous swing, is it not?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So I think ultimately the best source of data that we can go by is really 2 points. One is our own direct experience in the marketplace, because marketplace data and feedback from the market is, like immediate. And at this moment, what we have is we have 8 showings and no offers. So the marketplace is telling us they're seeing enough value to look, just not enough to buy. The second piece of data we have to go on is what's been happening with our direct competitors. And what's interesting is in the last 30 days while we've been on the market, those 2 specifically that we mentioned that I sent to you, they actually started off at $1,070,000 and they lowered their price to $980,000. And the other one lowered their price. They started off at like 1.1 and now they're at 900. So that's a second data point. That's direct feedback from the marketplace, right? So With that being said, we have a couple options at our disposal. Whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. One option is we could leave the price the same. Cross our fingers, hope and wish and pray that we get an offer that's acceptable. And more likely than not, Jose, after 2 weeks on the market and this number of showings, we're probably going to get the same result. That's not me being negative. It's just intentionally giving you an accurate assessment of reality. It doesn't mean I don't believe in your property. It's just I'm looking at data, making an unemotional kind of decision based on what data is showing me. The second option we have at our disposal is that we can just adjust the price. And in doing so, we're in alignment with where buyers and sellers have been agreeing and dramatically increase the probability that we can get an offer that's acceptable in a reasonable amount of time. So based on what you're looking to accomplish and why and the time frame you'd like to make this happen in, what do you think we should do? So what was interesting, Jose, is when you start to carry lots of inventory, you'll get a call like this. You won't even call them. They'll call you. And when they would call me, Jose, and be like, hey, is there anything we could do to market behind? It's been two days or whatever, 2 weeks. We've been on the market. We've only had 4 or 5, like 3 or 4 showings. I'd be like, hey, you know what? I'm so glad you called me. Because I was thinking about that too. And it's actually concerning me a lot. And then it turns into a price reduction conversation.
Well, not only that, I think what people don't realize is that when you receive those types of phone calls, it's a motivation sign.
Mm-hmm.
It means that they're like basically like motivated to do something. Because I've received those calls too. Okay, so what about this approach? Well, who actually determines value? Like, is it Zillow? Is it an appraiser? Like, run with that.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, what I'm aware of is I'd love to be able to determine value, Jose. It'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? We could just wave a magic wand while we're at it. We could get like $2 million, right? You'd be happy. I'd be happy. At the same time, who would you say ultimately determines value? Is it me, you? Who is it?
Is it an appraiser? Is it Zillow?
Exactly. Who?
Well, I get to determine what I sell my property for.
Sure. You have some decision making there. And who else?
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it would probably be the one that's bringing the money. Yes.
You mean the appraiser?
The buyer. Would you agree?
Well, obviously they can make offers.
That's right. So I'm in agreement. Like, I agree with you, Jose. Where buyers determine, like how value is determined is between a buyer and a seller. And then all the other ancillary people that jump in afterwards is after they've come to an agreement. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Yeah. So really, when we're looking at market data, we're looking at data that shows us where buyers and sellers have already been agreeing. And that's really value, right? And then what we're also looking at in terms of what's active on the market is we have sellers saying, hey, I want to sell this thing. And if people aren't in agreement, what do you think happens? Do you think they get an offer? Or do you think they sit on the market?
They probably sit on the market if they're not in agreement.
Yep, I agree with you. So those are the two data sets that we're looking at. So we can see, we have our own experience. We've been on the marketplace for 30 days. We've had 8 showings and no offers. What do you think the buying public is telling us about our price and product then?
I don't know.
Well, they see enough value to look. Are they seeing enough value to buy and make us offers?
No. So from that data, we have 2 choices we can make. One is we can resist what the marketplace is telling us, and we can continue to persist down a particular track. We can keep it at the price and see what happens. And more likely than not, Jose, this isn't me being negative, we're probably going to get the same result. We'll get showings and no offers, or very few showings, if any, all. The second is we can listen to what the marketplace is showing us, make an adjustment, and dramatically increase the probability we can get you an offer in the time frame that you want. So based on what you're looking to accomplish, why, what do you think we should do? Got it. What about in a dynamic where you feel like you're chasing down the market?
Yeah. So then express what you're seeing. So it's like,
I'm noticing.
Can I share with you what would concern me, Jose, for you and your family if we chose that approach? Okay. So let's say they're like, hey, I want to come down smaller or whatever. And it's important here. Can I share with you what would concern me for you and your family? And ultimately how much you end up netting if you choose that approach. Okay. Because if I simply say to you, Jose, can I share with you what would concern me if you chose that approach? You don't care what concerns me, bro.
No.
At all. But if I say to you, hey, can I share with you what would concern me for you, Mariela, Diego and Jose, if you chose that approach and how much you end up getting and taking with you to Texas, now you're completely listening to me. So what we certainly wouldn't want to create for you, Jose, is a dynamic where we chase the market down. Can I explain to you what I mean?
Sure.
Well, if we were only missing by a few $1,000, do you think we would still be here and be getting showings and no offers? Do you think we probably would have got an offer by now?
No, we probably would have got an offer.
I agree. So by coming down in a smaller amount, I know that might be a little bit more palatable or comfortable. At the same time, long term, it could end up creating an environment where then we make another adjustment, and we end up chasing the market down. The other thing that concerns me, Jose, is as time progresses, one of the first questions that buyers ask me when they come inside of a property, and all of these platforms prominently display this information on the first page, they ask me, Aaron, how many days has this been on the market? Why do you think they ask me that?
I don't know.
Well, let's say you and Mariela were shopping and there was a home that was on the market and it had only been on the market for 3 days. You walk in, Mariela starts lighting up and you see it and you're like, oh man, I think I'm going to spend some money today. And she's like, babe, I have to have this. And you're like, okay. And you come to me as your agent and you're like, hey, how many days has it been on the market? I'm like, only 4. And then I tell you there's like 5 other people that have scheduled showings and one other person said they're going to make an offer. What's the probability you would make a full price offer or maybe even more or be aggressive with terms and conditions to make sure that you get it?
Probably high.
Awesome. I agree. Now let's imagine for a moment we're shopping and the one she comes across has been on the market for 95 days. Mariela says, yeah, this one's cool. I like it. You ask me, hey, what's the situation here? And I'm like, well, it's been on the market for 95 days. And you're like, any other interest? I'm like, nope. I talked to the listing agent. They've only had 8 showings, no offers, and there's nobody else interested. What's the probability, Jose, you'd make a full price offer then?
Probably none.
Yeah. And just by you saying that demonstrates that you recognize that elongating the process long term ends up causing offers to come in less and less. You don't want that to happen, do you?
Of course not.
Okay. So then we have a choice to make, and the choice is yours. Whatever you decide is okay. One is we can make a smaller adjustment that perhaps I know would feel a little bit better. At the same time, long term, again, if we were only missing by a small amount, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and we'll have to revisit it, and we could create a dynamic where we chase the market down, we come up, see offers come in less and less. The second option is we make a more aggressive adjustment and put you in a position, Jose, where I can bring you an offer and you just say no. Or I can negotiate on your behalf and pull them up to where we want them to be versus being in a situation where we're not getting any. So based on what you guys are looking to accomplish and why, what's important to you and Mariela, the time frame you like to make this happen in, what do you think we should do?
Got it. So let's say, and I'm drilling you, bro, and I
know,
love
bro.
this.
Hey, all day.
All right. So let's say that I have a nicer property, right?
Yep.
And let's say that an inferior property to mine sold and we listed at the same price and we're still not getting offers.
Yeah. So I understand where you're coming from, Jose, and it's really confusing. And truthfully, it's got me scratching my head too. And I take the responsibility you provided me with very seriously, which is to protect the value of your property. I have to get you every penny possible. So what I'd like to do is to revisit kind of what we've experienced so far. Then go over a detailed, updated market analysis as to what we're seeing in the marketplace at this moment. Then review some of your options and choices. And again, whatever you decide, I'm perfectly okay with, and I'll support you 100%. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
So it's that same pattern. I acknowledge, I align myself with you. I like unattached. So, it's very confusing as we take a look at this and we can see that yours is nicer, right? As far as like features and amenities, you had the upgrades, the other one didn't. Now, the other thing I'm aware of though, is when we take a look at that, because again, I've been really thinking about this and, kind of asking myself, okay, well, what's really going on here? How can we help Jose and Mariela get top dollar and what needs to be done in order to ensure that happens? And price is a snapshot in time, Jose. I know you know that one that sold, that the one that we're like looking at and kind of pointing towards, it sold 4 months ago. And what that means is it really went under contract like 45 or 60 days before that. So it's actually a 6-month-old comp. And what I'm aware of, which I know you know, is that, markets aren't static. They don't stay static in the same. If anything, they're constantly in flux, right? And they're constantly changing. And that seems to be what we're seeing here. Now, let's look at some more information. See, in fact, if this is what's truly going on. Then I would go into a detailed analysis of anything that's available, active, closed, and that sort of thing, and then go down the same track.
Yep. What if how do you deal with like negative feedback? Like let's say let's say that the property has a funky smell. Or let's say
I call you up and be like, Jose, your house stinks, bro.
Let's say they're smokers, or let's say I don't know if you've ever walked into a house and it smells like wet dog.
Oh yeah, bro.
Like
hey, I've been at houses where I come home and I'm like, babe, you're gonna have to burn this soup because it stinks. They had a cat farm there.
Yeah, that. So let's say that, and people sometimes they get emotional, they get defensive. So how do you communicate that in a way where they don't, where it eliminates some of that?
Yeah, so I think you're just really tactful. So you're like, hey, prior to going over the feedback, I just want you to know, Jose, like the intention of giving the feedback. And I'm not suggesting you're doing this. Now, time out. When I say I'm not suggesting you're doing this, I am suggesting you're doing it, but it allows distance. Yeah. So the intention on kind of sharing with you this feedback is really just to equip you with all the information you need so we can make decisions that will help you to get what you want in the time you want. Right. And I'm not suggesting that you're doing this. I sometimes find that when people get exposed to this feedback, it causes them to, perhaps respond emotionally or viscerally, kind of take personal offense. And my experience is professionally that it would really help you get what you want, because that's really what the goal here is. The end goal is getting what you want, to really do our best. And I know it can be a challenge to kind of separate the emotional component, listen to the feedback, so that way we can decide if we want to make any adjustments and approach that increases the chances that you get the offer that you want. Because what I'm really interested in, Jose, is you and Mariela accomplishing your goal, which is to get this home sold and get to Texas. And I'm 100% committed to not only giving you the information that you need to make the decision, but also perhaps doing what we need to do in order to make that happen. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
So I'm going to address that up front, particularly if I see the feedback could be a little sensitive. So one of the things that we're hearing is that, from the showings, we've heard it actually 3 or 4 times now of the 8 showings. So in 50% of the showings, people feel that there's like an overpowering smell of smoke. And I'm aware you guys smoke in the home. And I'm also aware that, you are probably aware that some people might find that a little off-putting. Right. So I guess my question to you is that something you would be willing to adjust or to, maybe put a little bit of capital into the property to try to reduce that being a hindrance, getting in the way of somebody making us an offer? And then be quiet, see what they say. So I think it's really like that upfront thing of tactfully and respectfully.
That's the challenge.
That's the challenge.
The framing of it at the very beginning, like the setup, basically.
That's right.
Now, let's say it's something like let's say it's wet dog.
Yeah. So, I have some feedback for you, and it came from, one of the recent showings. And prior to me sharing it with you, I want you to know a few things. One, I love dogs. I think they're wonderful. I'm also aware that, this type of feedback, sometimes, I'm not suggesting this is true for you, sometimes it can be perceived as kind of be offensive, you know what I mean? And our emotions can get kind of perked up and we want to get defensive and stuff. I know that ultimately for me anyway, I really try to do my best to focus on the end goal. And the end goal is getting you to your next destination and getting this home sold. I know you shared with me how important it is. You shared with me how important it is that we get as much as we can out of the sale, because you need every penny possible. And I take that responsibility very seriously. So prior to me sharing it with you, my suggestion would be is to maintain an open mind and really do your best to hear it as something that we can make a decision about that would help you to get to ultimately your next destination and get you what you want and get you top dollar. Fair enough?
Okay.
So yeah, one of the things that we're hearing is that, they're sharing, there's a strong, dog smell, obviously, you have a dog in the home. So I guess my question is, because we've heard this more than once, and it seems to be a sticking point and a roadblock. It's getting in the way of us getting an offer. In no way, shape, or form am I suggesting that you have your animal go someplace else. I know they're like family members. At the same time, is it something that you would be open to addressing, as far as like, perhaps maybe doing some things like we can get the carpets cleaned, or maybe like, a fresh coat of paint or something of that nature to kind of offset any smell that may be present?
I wouldn't, but what if I just offer a credit to them, like for $1,000 or something like that,
Yeah. And here's the interesting thing about that. That's totally an option. And if that's what we wish to do, we can do that. My professional experience is that, the difference between getting showings and no offers, or very few showings, the difference between getting showings and offers, or getting very few showings, if any at all, or getting showings and offers, it's really not over like $1,000 credit. Like it wouldn't be something that like really moved the needle, because you might be thinking to yourself like, hey, just make me an offer, even if it's a lowball offer, and we can negotiate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my professional experience in the marketplace is that people typically, as they do the calculations in their mind, they're making these adjustments based on like what they think they're going to have to do. So we might be like, hey, we'll spend $1,000 to clean the carpet. But let's say you were a buyer, not a seller. And I know those hats are different. And you were buying, and somebody said like, hey, I'll give you $1,000. But in your mind, you're thinking, well, that's not going to go very far. I'm going to have to change the carpet, not clean it. I'm going to have to paint. I'm going to have to change the air duct system and get it cleaned and all that stuff. And approximately in your mind, how much do you think that would cost? You think it would cost $1,000 or a lot more than that?
Probably more than that.
Yeah, you're probably thinking more like 10,000, right? So then, do you think that you would reflect that in the offer that you make?
Yeah, of course.
Exactly. So we have a choice to make. One is we offer out like a credit of some sort, which, my experience has shown me is really not going to move the needle. The second is we just simply reflect in the price. Hey, we know you're going to have to do some things, and we're going to make this reflection with the goal and objective of actually receiving an offer on the table. Because what my general concern is Jose, you shared with me you want to make this move happen in the next 120 days. You've been on the market for 45. And that really means, let me see here. Wow, like we would have to be under contract in the next 30 to 45 days, because it usually takes another 45 to 60 days to close. Tell me this, what would happen on the outside chance if we were still sitting here 6 months from now and it wasn't sold?
It would not be good, because I'm in escrow on a different property.
Exactly. So with that being said, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, probably reduce.
Mm-hmm.
Good, bro. This is gold. I think that this is I believe that the next section after the price reduction is going to be presenting offers, and basically which comes down to price as well too.
Yeah.
So it comes down to price, motivation, timing, basically.
Yeah. And they all build on each other. And then I think what we can do too is, presenting offers, but then a whole kind of series on negotiating, because what I don't think people recognize, that's a presentation, like 100%, like how you're, I'm getting ready to shoot another part of the series that we're doing, and it's actually on negotiating. And as I was kind of preparing for it, I was like, wow, like, look at that. I'm like, hey, here's all the information and data that you need to compile before you even have the conversation. Then you got to call the lender, and that's a conversation. Then you got to call the agent to try to gather any data. Then you got to actually call the seller and have a presentation. So yeah, stay tuned, guys, because again, we're 1,000% committed to equipping you with actual tactics that you can use to make money. Most people teach mindset because they can't teach tactics. While mindset is important, tactics are critical, and that's what we are abundant in, is tactics. So keep staying tuned in, and don't get it twisted, Jose. I would definitely beat you on a listing presentation.
Oh man,
let's
that's so
go.
funny. All right, later, guys. Peace.
Peace.